Namaste, everyone. Welcome to our seminar, which is an initiative of Skills, Knowledge, and Innovation Committee. It's a committee run by NRNA Australia. Today, we have a special guest, Suraj Banjade, who is a senior data analyst. He's a young guy, comes from a chemical engineering background, but he, kind of diverted his career into a data analyst area, and he's been doing very well. Right now, he's working as a senior data analyst for a regional investment commission, I think. Since data analyst is a very popular uh, area in IT industry, a lot of people have interests in today's seminar. So it's very good to see so many people join us. Um, Most of us are all Nepalese, but there could be a few people who are of non-Nepalese background. For those, I want to apologize in advance that some of our conversation might be in Nepali, so please excuse us. But we will mostly conduct the seminar in English language so that everyone can understand. Right. So I'd like to introduce Surajji by himself. Surajji, please say a few words about your background and your journey, if possible, please.
There's a bit of an introduction about myself. I originally in 2006 moved to New Zealand with my parents. So I finished part of my high school from New Zealand, and I've always been interested in science, mathematics. So I studied chemical and process engineering from University of Canterbury in New Zealand, which I passed with honors. And within a few years of working as engineer, I got quite bored of it pretty quickly, and then pivoted towards data and analytics. And I've really enjoyed data and analytics career, and I think it's a growing career. A lot of opportunities now, and in future. So I'd like to through this seminar, try to condense the key experience and key lessons I've learned from working for various ASX-listed firms, startup, and in government sector. Try to condense the key principles of what I have learned working in this career, and what are the key themes that anyone who wants to get into this career, like what would be the key themes they'd have to follow. So I'd love to present that in this seminar.
Okay. Thank you, Surajji. We're very lucky to have you here today, Ainam. I think a lot of the people who are joining us today, probably they are all aspiring data analysts, or there could be some people who are already working in the industry. As you said, it's not just for people who are looking to start a career, but also those who are already working in the industry and want to climb up the corporate ladder. I think we can, get so much knowledge from Surajji, right? So, this seminar and our committee is all about sharing knowledge. We will listen to Surajji for a while. I think he has a short presentation to give, and then we'll start the Q&A session. So you can ask any question about the industry, right? About how to grow your career, how to start your career, and you can ask your questions in Nepali, English, whatever, as long as you can communicate your ideas. That's fine. It doesn't have to be in English all the time. So yeah, let's begin our program. Surajji, would you like to do your short presentation?
Yes, I think I probably you need to give me access to share my screen.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Did you get access?
No, I think when I try to share a screen, it says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, it should be all right now.
Yep. Share. Cool. Can everyone see my screen?
Not yet.
Yeah, can see it.
All right, thank you. Cool. So a bit of a introduction about myself, which I've already given. So I'll so yeah, that's me. I think that's one of the best pictures of me, so I put it there.
Suraj, actually, I can't see your screen yet.
Me too. Again,
No, you have to switch to the Suraj Ji's screen. There will be the option in view option, right? If you go to view option, you have to change the screen to Suraj Banjade's screen at the top.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, or I think Ranji, if you just unshare your screen, and then it should be just one single screen, so
Okay.
everyone should be
Right.
able to share that.
Yep, here you go. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
thank
can
you.
see now.
Awesome. So yes, I think I've introduced myself. So I think the key theme is, I think before I even start, I'd like to say that what I'm data and analytics, you don't have to have a title of data and analytics to do data and analytics. You know, when I was an engineer, I did data analytics. You could be an accountant, you could be a builder, you could be an engineer, you could be a tradesman, you could be anyone. And so I think, especially over the past 10 years, I think this specialized field of data and analytics has come up, but people has always been analyzing data since the beginning of time, effectively. So I think the title, I think there are a lot of companies offer a specialist role of data and analytics, which is immensely growing. But the skill sets of data and analytics, I think it's a good tool in your career to have to progress in any field, in my opinion. So my agenda for today would be trying to answer what is data and analytics, because I feel like once we know on a big picture, based on my experience, what is data and analytics, then then the next step of why, I think once I answered this, then it would make it easier to then go into how to enter data analytics, or maybe why to enter data analytics. So my presentation would be purely focused on what is data analytics and giving you a view of what I do on a daily basis. So I have a case study, the simple one, just to give you an idea of what is data and analytics. And for those interested, I'm happy to send the link of this the quiz that I have created. I created this quiz when I was hiring at my previous role, and since then, what I've done is I've made this quiz such that it has key concepts from core data and analytics field, and it tries to and I've converted it into a quiz. And so yeah, feel free to do the quiz. Later on, I'll send everyone the link. And if you submit the quiz, and I'm happy to give you a personalized feedback. I'm happy to give you tips on where you went right, where you went wrong, and why specific. Maybe that'll help me identify specific areas where your strength lies, where your weaknesses might be. So I'm happy to do that, and then if you do the quiz later, don't be afraid of giving wrong answer, because when I do this quiz myself, I still get few things wrong. Okay, so in summary, let's just simplify it. Data and analytics equals problem solving. Simple as that. Like, you're there to solve a problem, nothing more, nothing less. If you solve a problem, you get paid. Like, the reason anyone would hire you and pay you money is to solve their problem. And if you solve it really well, you get bonus on top of your pay. That's it. So achieving a goal is problem solving. If you imagine yourself as a startup, or you work for any company, success equals execution. Execution starts with what should I do? But in the real world, resources are limited: time, budget, effort. So you can't afford to focus on the wrong thing. The purpose of data and analytics is to define what is the right thing to do. So why are problem-solving skills important? Time, people, and money are scarce for any company or project. If with unlimited time, people, and money, anything can be achieved. However, no company has unlimited time, people, and money. So the goal of data analyst is to start from so any company, it could be in current state, they would want to get to the goal. And the role of a data analyst is to identify a path that requires the least amount of time, people, and money. So just give you an example that everyone can understand. Let's say an e-commerce business has a net profit of 50K per month, and the goal is to reach 100K a month. Now, you are hired to effectively, the goal of a data analyst would be to identify marketing, product, and supply chain mix that has a high likelihood of achieving the goal. I mean, you could provide extremely wrong answers, and then you could get fired like that. That's a possibility. But by and large, your goal is to use correct methodology and identify set of strategies that requires the least amount of time, people, and money to get to the goal. And when you're trying to solve the problem, there are thousands of ways to look at the problem. There are thousands of solutions. So I think in data analytics, it's very important to follow a methodology. There are thousands of methodologies, and the methodologies I follow, they're purely based on my personal experience and journey. So so there are thousands of methodologies, and this is some of the core methodologies that I follow on my day-to-day basis. So one of the most popular problem-solving methodologies are tactical thinking and design thinking. So tactical thinking is what to do, and design thinking is how to do. And so this session would be exclusively be focused on tactical thinking, because as a data analyst, generally your role is to define what to do. And the next thing is, why am I boring you with a bit of a sort of theoretical background? It is because as a data analyst, you need to be consistent with how you are solving problems. So this tactical thinking methodology is a set of guidelines to help you identify and define the problem. 99% of the time, before people solve their problem, they're not actually defining what the problem is. I've seen this across my career, is they want to solve their problem, but they haven't defined what the problem is. So that's the first part of this methodology. Second is generate solutions. The third is compare alternative solutions, and D, decide the right thing to do. So I generally, anytime I'm giving a problem to solve, which is that's my job as a data analyst, I try to follow these sort of guidelines. And the value of specific method is that it ensures, now this applies to any methodology where you follow, is following a set methodology improves consistency of problem solving across multiple domains. So I work in a government sector, a branch of federal government, and there are so many different problems from different domains. I could be working on marketing one day, and I could be working on designing what's the best program to combat drought in Australia. Requires totally different way of thinking, and this following a methodology sort of keeps you consistent and keeps you focused. And the second benefit of following a methodology is it keeps you disciplined and makes you go through the process to understand the problem and find evidence. Sometimes I could have a bad day. I'm not sleeping well. There could be issues in my life. I'm not my best self. So how do you make sure that you perform at a higher level despite you not feeling well, so on and so forth? So just following a methodology makes you disciplined. And as I said, it doesn't require you to be in a top creative mood to solve a problem. A really smart person just randomly trying to find a solution is 100 times worse than an average person following a methodology. So you could be top 1% of IQ, and if you don't follow a methodology and just randomly do things, that versus the average person following a methodology, I'll always pick the average person. And following a set methodology, it's easy to communicate concepts with stakeholders. So I think this page tries to summarize what I said before, is as a data analyst, you can't be randomly thinking, and you cannot think, and you cannot have wishful thinking. You should always think tactically. solve the problem in the most resource efficient way. So before I go to the next slide, which is a case study, anyone have any question? Cool. So I'll go through the case study, and maybe there would be more questions.
Yeah. I think we're gonna have a Q&A session at the end anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. You know, once you've done the presentation.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I have just one question, which is you said the main job of data analyst is to solve problems. Isn't it that they also identify opportunities?
I think it's a bit of semantics. I think opportunities is I think you're
wherever
correct.
there's a
I think
problem, there's opportunity, right?
Yeah, problem, and I think where a company has earns money is effectively solving a problem of customers in some ways, or making the company more efficient by solving sort of internal problems. But you're right. It's conceptually it's A, finding opportunities, and B, solving problems.
Yeah. Like I was just thinking, maybe, you know, for example, if Woolies wants to know which product is selling more, a data analyst can help them identify that product, and then they can focus on that product more, so that they can grow faster, right? This one done. Yeah,
exactly.
No, yeah, thank you.
Cool. So tactical thinking is a three-step methodology. So as a data analyst, once you get a problem, what you do is you set a quantitative goal and you break it down. There are multiple ways to break down problem, but I'll focus today on what I call a MECE way. And third is based on the outcome from two, prioritize with data. So I'll actually do a case study, and this and this is actually a real life-ish scenario that we face all the time, when I used to work for a startup before. So context. So we recently released a TV campaign and are observing that our daily acquisition is growing by 10 times. Customer care team is overwhelmed by all the inquiries, and our Trustpilot score is failing and has just reached 1 star from 5 star. So the problem is you did an awesome campaign, you're getting a lot of customers, but then the customers have some inquiries about the product you might be selling or anything, and you can't answer, you don't have the capacity to answer all the inquiries, and your rating online has gone from 5 star to 1 star. That's a disaster. It's a good thing that happened, but then it became a disaster. So number one, how to think tactically, set a quantitative goal. So let's quantify a goal. Absorbing all demand can be quantified as getting a time capacity divided by required time ratio above 1. So if a capacity to solve a customer query is 50 hours, you should only be getting 50 hours or less of customer query. That's how you maintain a good customer service. So if 50 hours of time is available from your customer service rep, you should not get more than 50 hours of inquiry. So in this case, we're getting more queries, and there's no capacity to handle that. And so that's a problem. So executives come with a problem, and I like to use a messy way. So I'll share this slide so you don't have to read all the theoretical context, but in simple words, messy way, MECE, which stands for mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. You break down a big problem into smaller, distinct parts so they don't overlap and everything is covered. So I think after this session, feel free to Google messy way. People have better ways of explaining this, but I have found that me using this method has made me a very good, consistent data and analytics professional. And this is I would say one of my key strengths. And I have consistently found success by using this method to solve problems or find opportunities. So when someone, so you should be doing like that. As a data analyst, this is the bread and butter. There are various methodologies, but I'm just giving you one of the examples. So in this, so just recapping, the problem is we're not able to absorb all customer care queries. So we quantified a goal, which was that time capacity divided by required time ratio should be above 1. So now let's break this down messy way: mutually exclusive, collectively exhausting. Let's treat this as a mathematical question and then go. Our ratio is made up of staff time capacity and required time to solve customer query. Okay, what is staff time capacity? It's a function of number of staff multiplied by hours per staff available for customer service. So that's one branch. The other branch is required time to solve customer query. It's a function of number of customer queries you're getting and hours to resolve each of the customer query. So business presented you with a problem, and as a data analyst, we used a methodology called MISI to essentially map the problem. So that's our problem. And now the next thing is you would use your SQL queries to query the database and identify data to fill this tree. So now the issue is we have 30 hours of capacity. It's made up of 3 team members working 10 hours a week. And your number of queries you're receiving takes 50 hours to solve. And it's made up of 50 inquiries per month with 1 hour per inquiry. So this is the situation. So as a data analyst, you have mapped the problem and you have queried the database to find the data to fit this map. So now as a data analyst, you then present this to the executive team, and then you would go, okay, this is the problem. The problem is our ratio is 0.6, meaning our capacity is overwhelmed by the hours required to get this ratio above 1. And then your proposal could be, okay, let's increase this ratio by reducing the inquiries per week. That's one idea. Or we could achieve the ratio of 1 by reducing the query from 1 hour to 36 minutes. Or you could add 1 staff. These are the options at the table. And it turns out, so if you actually decrease required time per query, so if you go that branch, we're currently taking 1 hour per inquiry. If you actually then map it from there, you would actually identify what the issue is. So in this fictional example, customer query was improperly triaged. Thus, it was taking a lot of time to send customer inquiry to someone who could solve the problem. So now, by using this method, we've identified that the core problem is actually we need to decrease time required per inquiry. So if we decrease the time from 1 hour to 36 minutes, effectively solve the problem. Now, I think this 90% of the time, as a data analyst, you're presented with a problem and you find a solution and you present the solution to the executive team, and that's 90% of your role. And 90% of the time, problem solving is simply querying the database and having a pencil and A4 paper and literally drawing the solution. That's how I do. And no fancy machine learning algorithm or AI is required. You would get paid a lot of money as a data analyst for doing this day in and day out. So you don't need to know some fancy algorithm or AI, ML. And that's my personal experience. That doesn't mean that's the truth, but in my opinion, 90% of the task of a data analyst is precisely to do this task in a sense. So what did we do? So by using a good methodology, so what we did was we didn't do random thinking. We didn't overlook the problem and misuse of resource. So when that problem happened, I'll be honest, half the time the solution could have been, oh, let's improve the product offering and spend 200K per annum so we don't get the query. That's frequently businesses do that. They get a problem and someone goes, oh yeah, let's do that, and they spend 200K without actually solving the underlying problem. And no thinking, sometimes lethargy happens in the company, they do nothing. And wishful thinking would be, oh, let's hire extra customer service staff, and it would cost more than 100K to the company, doesn't really solve the problem. So your goal as a data analyst would be to think tactically. So what we did was we broke down the problem and we helped identify the core issue and saved business money. That's the definition of what a data analytics professional should be doing to be successful, in my opinion. And I think I think in the market, I think there's a conception that to be a data analyst, it's a technical skills. I would say it's 80% problem solving skills, or in the flip side, identifying opportunities, and 80% of the time that, and 20% of the time actually using, MI, like machine learning or AI tools. I would say 90% of top ASX 100 companies, they do not use AI or ML unless it's a domain. Unless it's, you're working for Facebook, for example, you're working for Google. They have so much data that they do need AI and ML. But for your run-of-the-mill ASX 100 companies, where 90% of the jobs actually originate, all you have to be successful is know how to solve a problem, and then know how to solve a problem. Think in a methodological way, and if you solve their problem, then that you become successful. So I'll go to the next slide. It's how to get into data analytics. So how to get into data and analytics. So number one, you need to have the key skills. What are the key skills? So in my opinion, the foundational knowledge you need to have is basic knowledge of statistics. Nothing high level, just basic. You need to know what the difference between median and mean is. You need to know what standard deviation is. You need to know the basics, but nothing beyond the basics as a starting point. And the other core thing is SQL languages to query the database. Well, you won't be data analyst without knowing how to extract the data. So it's very important that that you know how to use the SQL languages. And there are various companies, Oracle, Microsoft, but they all roughly use the same language, which is called which is SQL. And the big chunk is problem solving. You need to do your own research. Identify a methodology that works with how your brain works, and you just need to solve problems or identify opportunities. So and that's I think is one of the core skill sets you need to have. And the top, you need AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning skills. In my opinion, I think AI and ML skills, they're starting to become more and more important as the volume of data is increasingly going up, and the algorithms, AI and ML algorithms, they've really improved in quality in the last 2 years. So I think that the AI and ML skills are increasingly becoming more and more important, even for on a day-to-day basis. But for, as I said, 95% of ASX-listed companies, if you have the bottom three, you'll be good. So how to get into data analytics? Okay, what are the qualifications you require? So basic knowledge of statistics. You can go Coursera and you can enroll in Introduction to Statistics courses, and that's it. That's all you need. It's freely available. SQL languages, and I'm just giving example of Coursera, but there are a lot of platforms where you can do that. So it's the core technical skills. It's all freely available, and anyone can do it. And the problem solving skills, where I think you can't really learn these skills necessarily, but I think if you actively listen, and if you maybe go into YouTube, for example, and then just type in MECE problem solving methodology, you'll find a lot of people who eloquently explain what that is. And I'd like to just disclaimer, this is my experience and journey. So it doesn't mean this is the reality, but in my opinion, I think having these sort of skills and qualification could be a good starting point to get in this field. And some of the interview tips, I think you might want to ask Ryan Dai for some of the interview tips. He had sent me a document, and it was really good. So feel free to ask him to get that document. But in here, I've tried to take things from that document and just summarize, in a big picture, what are good, if you do want to get in this field, you earned your skills and you're applying for a job. So what are the big picture things you need to do? One, you need to convince the hiring manager that you can solve their problems and not add more work. Simple as that. At minimum, you should be doing that, And second thing is, give a specific example of how you have solved problems before. third is research strongly on company background, role, and hiring manager. I think LinkedIn has made that part really easy, because when I applied for jobs back in 2016, LinkedIn wasn't that used, and then this thing was actually quite hard. But now you can look up people. It's so easy to do research on the company background, role, and hiring manager. And make sure CV and cover letter are customized based on each role. Generic CV and cover letter are red flags when hiring. If you're applying for a job, I think you should spend at least 4 to 5 hours customizing your cover letter and CV to make sure that it's customized for the job. I know 4 to 5 hours per job, it's a big ask, but I think if you do get that job, I think returns are quite good, so it'll be worth the effort. And when I was hiring, anyone who gave me a generic CV and cover letter, I was like, yep. I inherently I would be disinclined to hire them. People who customize their cover letter and CV, I always looked upon them favorably, even if they were technically less proficient. The fact that they customized their CV and cover letter showed me that they're hardworking, committed people. So, the difference between you getting a job and not getting a job could simply be that, how much effort you put in your CV and cover letter. And lastly, don't be shy about applying for roles, even if you don't have all the requirements for the jobs or experience. The number of times I have in the beginning of my career, even now, half the time, the jobs I apply for, half the things I can't even do, but I just apply to them anyway. And when I go to the interview stage, I convince them that, I can learn the skill on the job, or I convince them, I can solve your problems. I might not have that particular skill, but I can gain that skill within jobs. So don't be shy. A lot of the time people don't apply for jobs purely because it feels like they don't have all the requirements. Doesn't matter, just apply. The more jobs you apply, the luckier you get, in my opinion. And finally, I'll just touch base on artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, especially with ChatGPT coming into play, I think it has changed the landscape. So you can now, with AI, you can write code in minutes, and barrier to entry to analytics is greatly diminished. So I have 6-7 years of data analytics experience. From a purely technical skills point of view, someone with 6 months of experience would roughly have the same technical expertise I have, because they can just if they when I was learning how to code, I had to learn from scratch. I had to, if I had encountered an issue, I had to Google for 10 hours to find a solution. Now I copy the code, I paste the code in ChatGPT. I ask, okay, what am I doing wrong? It would precisely give me what I did wrong 50% of the time. 50% of the time it spews bullshit. So you need to be aware that it's not a perfect tool, but it's a great tool. So if you want to enter into data analytics field, you can learn twice as fast compared to pre-ChatGPT. And to be honest, there hasn't been an easier time to learn technical aspect of data analytics. And in here, don't focus too much in here. I'll just give you an example of how, by writing what my problem was, ChatGPT actually gave me the code, which was 90% correct. And then all I had to do was spend a few hours fine-tuning the code, and out was my model. So with ChatGPT and AI in general, you can be so much efficient in productivity. And the difference between me, someone who has years and years of experience, and you, entry level, as an example, the distance has greatly diminished. So in a sense, ChatGPT is actually bad for me, because the skills I had, it was separating me from the entry level professionals. And now the difference between entry level professional and me, from a technical standpoint, is zero. It's absolutely zero. And the only reason I can demand a better job is purely because I know how to solve problems. That's it. From a technical point of view, AI is going to be has revolutionized the competitive advantage from a technical skills is greatly reduced. So from a technical point of view, a data analyst who starts yesterday, and in 6 months' time, perhaps the technical skills we could be the same. I know how to do things without looking at ChatGPT. They will do the same thing using ChatGPT, but the end product would be roughly the same. So it's a great time to start in this field, and I'm really excited for whoever is starting the career now, because this AI is a game changer in that respect. But AI, doesn't solve your problems. So I think as a data analyst, you need to learn how to solve problems, and if you do that, you can have a very successful career in this field. And I think that was the end. And my take-home message is data analytics and AI are growing field with huge demand now and for future. And the key skills required is to be successful is ability to solve problems, or in a flip side, ability to identify opportunities. Artificial intelligence and machine learning skills should be downstream of ability to solve problems. Knowing AI or ML without having a consistent methodologies to solve problem is useless. I see a lot of aspiring data analysts sort of focusing too much on learning AI or ML. Like, it's good, you need to have the skills, but they're downstream of how to solve problems. Freely available courses should give you the skill stack required, but having a formal qualification does help, but not essential. Look at freely available business problems and write blogs on how you would have solved the problem. Personally, for me, I maintain a blog post. Well, I haven't posted since I think 2021, but in the beginning of my career, the fact that I blogged and I wrote, I would find a freely available business problem, and I have that has data associated with it, and I would write blog posts on how I would have solved it, and it has helped me immensely. I've heard feedback from hiring managers that the reason they hired me was that they liked my interview, but they were equally qualified candidates, but they read my blogs, and that was the difference between me getting hired and someone else getting hired. And as I said before, make sure CV and cover letter are customized based on each role, and don't be shy about applying for roles, even if you don't have all the requirements for the job or experience. I think, and that ends my short presentation.
Thank you, Suraj. It was very interesting, inspiring, and you made it sound so easy and simple to get into this field of expertise. It sounds like you don't even have to go to university. You can just do some free courses available on
Yes.
Coursera, LinkedIn, and get those technical skills. I think the most important thing is the problem-solving skills, which you will only gain through experience and knowledge, I guess.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I
think problem-solving skills, I think I'd like to hone in that, like, that's the key. That's the difference between you getting hired and not hired. And you obviously in the beginning you won't have solved a problem, or if you're pivoting from established career, I think you would have a lot of examples of how you have done that. But if you're starting, I think it's important to make things up by writing blogs or doing whatever, just to show them that you have solved a problem, and that's the key.
Okay, right. So you need to stand out from the crowd, and one of the things to do that is through blogging, as you said, which got you noticed in the industry by hiring managers, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay, that's a very good tip as well, right? But Suraj, you didn't mention a lot of other technical skills, like a lot of employers, they look for candidates with technical skills like Python, Tableau, Power BI tools, like you mentioned SQL. What about the other tools? Like, are they not necessary?
I think they are necessary, and I think, but they're all sort of downstream of the core. I think, like example, you're trying to visualize data on Tableau. That's the end result of you having identified a KPI,
right?
That should be tracked, and that the downstream of that is, well, you need a tool, you need something to visualize that KPI to see how that's evolving over time. So I think you're correct that I think Tableau, Power BI, more of a visualization tools. They are quite important. So it's I haven't listed it there, but yeah, I think they are definitely a important important skill sets to have.
Right. How about programming languages like Python and R? Like they are also in demand these days.
I think Python and R, like they're the tools to solve the problem. So as an example, in the example I gave before,
Yeah.
you know, it's you know the identifying the business problem. Okay, how many hours is it taking for you to solve a customer query? Now, I think I made it easy that, oh, it's 1 hour. Like it's like in no one would store that easily in a SQL server saying a 1 hour time taken. So you might get some messy data, you know, timestamp of how customer care manager, well, a customer care team was solving a customer query. You know, you need to join sort of various data sets. And I think that's where SQL languages come in, and that's where Python and R come in. But I think what my big picture theme is that these technical skills, they are means to a solution. The solution is you identify what the problem is, but you're right. Then it's how do you, like as an example, to get all the data that I had there, you need to use SQL, you need to use R, you need to use Python. But I think learning to use Python is actually quite discouraging, or learning to R is actually quite hard. But it's extremely easy if you find a problem and you have data for that problem, and you're trying to use that tools to find a solution. It just makes learning those programming languages quite easy. Personally, for me, I didn't know how to use R or Python. I knew how to use a tool called MATLAB as part of my engineering degree. But as a data analyst, I had to learn SQL languages. You know, I had no idea what the SQL is. So I just went to a freely available course and I learned how to use SQL. So luckily I got a job, and I had to do some modeling. I had to do some data analytics. I did not know how to use Python. So it's on the fly, on the job. I took a freely available course, you know, how to, because a lot of the time, to get the core of the data, you need tools such as Python to get there. And you know, I had a business problem to solve, and I think Python was the best tool to solve it. And then, you know, I learned Python on the fly, on the job, and now, you know, I can write pretty good Python code. But ultimately, end of the day, they're means to solve a problem, and I think what I was trying to get to is these are the tools to solve problem, but the key thing for you need to do to stand out is you know, learning how to solve the problem.
So I think I really like the thing that you said early in the presentation. You know, you got to define the problem first, because in many cases in businesses, they don't know what is the problem, and when they even define the problem, they define it wrong. You know, and when you have a wrong problem definition, you end up with wrong solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen businesses waste hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to solve the problem incorrectly. It's once in one of the companies I worked in, they had reduced their energy usage. And to reduce their energy usage, their solution was to add millions of dollars worth of solar panels. So at that time, I was in the energy team, and I reported to head of energy, and I was the senior data analyst in the energy division. And my head of energy came in. You know, it's like, you know, how installing solar is the hype. So the executives thought that the best way to reduce your energy usage is by installing millions of dollars worth of solar panels. And the issue for us, in a selfish way, is that our bonuses were tied to, we're giving a budget. How much can you save, right? Well, if we follow what they did, our budget would go up and our margin would decrease. So our division would look like it's not making enough money, and it would reduce my bonus, right? Like, you know, essentially that was, in a sense, like that was the problem. in a selfish way, but from a company level as well, there is the least efficient way to reduce your energy consumption. So what we did was, we did a simple thing. I drew a MISI diagram. I said, energy usage. Okay, what's a function of energy usage is heating the shopping center, all the lights that are on. I broke it down, broke down. And I had like a map that looked pretty big. And when we went through the tree, just like the case study, I did exactly that. It turns out we could save $1 million simply by asking cleaners to turn off the lights after they do their evening cleaning.
Right.
So the reason, like, I think we saved literally $1 million across. At that time, I used to work with Westfield. So across its 46 shopping centers, when cleaners cleaned in the evening, they didn't switch off the lights.
Okay.
And over the year, and they would turn on the HVAC and they won't switch it off. So by simply identifying, okay, we could save money simply by having a procedure where they actually switch off all the lights, and if the air conditioning, if it's still on, switch it off. By simply be doing that, the company saved $1 million per annum, and I got a good bonus as well, so I was quite happy.
Right.
And that's data analytics. To do that, all I had to do was identify what the problem is, break the problem down into its constituent components, and then see which thing can I influence that's the least resource consuming way. And most of the money I've made for various businesses or opportunities that I've identified, it has been simple things like that.
Right. Yeah, very, very interesting. Okay, so now we'll move on to our Q&A section. We already have quite a few questions here. Okay, Suraj, so we have Suzal Rangana. Suzalji, do you want to ask the question yourself, or do you want me to read it out? Where's Hello, Suzalji, are you there?
Hi, can you do the question for me? Sorry, I'm outside.
Sure, yeah, no problem, Suzalji. Okay, so Suzalji is asking, we know that most of the companies don't use fancy AI and ML for their analytics, but they usually ask for all the moons and stars in their job application. Any tips on passing that stage?
Okay, this is pretty unethical for me to say, but you just make bullshit. When I applied for my first data analytics job, I said I was a SQL expert. I did not know. I Googled what SQL. I knew roughly what it is, but I just said I know how to do SQL. But then you need to have a conviction that once you do get the, I'm talking about entry level perspective. Is I knew roughly how SQL query language worked.
Yeah.
But I hadn't had any real experience, right? Because I didn't study data analytics. So I sort of was really carefully interviewed, not to outright lie about the experience I had, but it's like, okay, I know what SQL is, and I gave them some sweet talk about how I've used SQL to solve a problem, like open source problem. And I actually had a blog post which used SQL to solve a problem, but I had practically very beginner knowledge. So I think you need to puff yourself up. Like, you need to know the core concept, AI, like AI, let's say in the job application, it says you need to have a time series prediction skill. And so you need to know ARIMA algorithm. And to be honest, to learn what the ARIMA algorithm is, this takes a week. If you're really focused, you can learn that skill in a week. So if you have a job interview that requires ARIMA, you research what ARIMA is. You memorize what it stands for. Autoregressive integrated moving average. You memorize the algorithm. You try to understand what this algorithm does. It's and then you need to have a conviction that if I get in the next stage of this application, I will spend 3 nights. I'll lock myself in the room, and I won't come out unless I exactly know what ARIMA is, how it works. So I think you need to ethically, like not be unethical, but sort of puff yourself up. If you don't know something, that's fine. No one knows. I don't know every algorithm, but I pretend I know. And if I do get in the next round, I'll lock myself in the room and I won't come out unless I know everything about it.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
that, and
I
then
think, as you said earlier, a lot of those courses are available online for free anyway.
yeah.
Right.
And
And
then these requirements, they're there to filter you. It's most likely none of these XX 100. I mean, if you apply for like a tech company, pure tech company, I think so this doesn't apply what I'm saying. But if you apply for a job at, let's say, Center Group, owners and operators of Westfield shopping centers, they might have them. They add these requirements to filter out candidates because they know if I think it's used mainly as a filtering tool, but they don't necessarily use it to the extent where you can't learn that skill within a week.
yeah.
So don't be shy. It's no matter what they say in the job requirement, just apply and say and do some research. Don't lie, but within there's a big gray area in between. Just puff yourself up, but then have a conviction that you can learn that skill once you get the job or once you get in the next interview stage. And there's freely available course out there. So there's nothing in this world, in especially technical skills, that you can't learn freely online. So just don't be shy. Just fake it till you make it.
Sure.
Surajji, the thing is, because you had the technical background, engineering background, maybe it was a bit easier for you to learn those key skills and get into data analytics. But for someone who is, wanting to change the career, right? We are working in another non-technical field and want to get into data analytics. How long would it take realistically, in average,
Uh,
get into that, and to learn the
uh,
keys like statistics, SQL, and then
uh,
actually to be able to get a job, to get into data analytics?
uh, So I think data analytics is a broad subject because within there's data science.
That's right.
And that's where I initially started off, and it was easy because I had a mathematical engineering background. But then there are things such as there are jobs, data analyst, more focused on policy level. Like for example, currently my job, it's on a policy level. There's no big data. I look at so this the so but I think disregarding my personal journey as an entry level, you can apply for jobs such as campaign analyst, they say, which is analyzing marketing data, for example. So you'll find a area that isn't technical heavy, and I think campaign analyst, analyzing what a campaign went. As an example, you could I think every company that has any sort of marketing has a campaign analyst role. So in that role, what you do is you analyze how effective a marketing campaign was, and to get into that as an example, you need to spend probably a few months sort of understanding Google, how marketing works, digital marketing works, and there's plethora of information out there on how do you advertise on Google, like what data comes out. That's number one. Number two is sort of basic SQL skills to query the database, maybe, and then ability to solve problems. As I said, I think you can't really learn that. It comes from experience. It's a bit of a chicken and egg issue, but I think you don't even need to have a mathematical background as such. All you need to know is work with numbers. It's a conversion rate. What's conversion rate? If 100 people come to your website and 5 people actually buy a product, that's a conversion rate of 5%. And 99% of the time, to be honest, things don't become complex. Things aren't significantly complex if you sort of break it down. So things might look complex when you just looked at a very big picture, but then if you learn how to break down the problems, then the skills actually required to solve, the barrier is actually not that high. So I think my recommendation for someone who wants to start off would be to maybe campaign analyst. I think that's a less technical heavy, but more of a thinking sort of role. So then if you're a good analytical thinker, and by analytical, I don't mean mathematically sound, just in general, like when you see a problem, how do you break it down? But then the technical requirements are fairly low on that job. So that could be a good starting point. So I think, and I think in the job, you can read through the job description as well. I think you can make out, and then I think the it's I would say 50% of the entry level jobs, they might say you need to have X, Y, and Z, but they don't actually need you to use those things. And generally, if you join a bigger team, so if it's a data analytics sort of unit of 6 people, then I think I would recommend you join that, apply for jobs and accept jobs where there are more people in the team, because they can mentor you, and they need to have a conviction that within few weeks I will at least gain some skill sets. So I think just to summarize to your question,
So how long would it take, realistically for
I
someone?
think 3 months. I think like anyone, the out of 80% of the skills, you don't use it. 20% of the skills, you need to do 80% of the task.
Yeah.
And that's where I think mentorship comes in. Is okay, what's that 20%? If you learn 100%, it'll take you 2-3 years to learn all these skills. But then if you talk with someone in this area or this background, all you need to do is learn that 20% of the skill sets required to do 80% of the job. And to learn that 20%, I would say 3 to 6 months. It wouldn't take longer than that.
For entry-level tracks, could you use AI? Could you feed data into AI, right? Raw data, and then, seek the help from AI. Can you do that? Can you analyze data?
I think you can. I
Entry-level
think, as I
job.
said, I think the AI has reduced the technical barrier to entry. So let's say you have a data with, let's say as a simple thing, let's say you have a data, but the dates are formatted incorrectly. And then so let's say you need to present how many sales were happening in the last 5 years, but the data you received, it had dates formatted in an incorrect way. So now pre-AI, you need to exactly learn the libraries required to format the data. Now you can feed the data into ChatGPT and say, give me the code that would clean up this data. So in that sense, the barrier to entry is low, and AI would help immensely. But I think but I think it's but then the next step is, okay, how do you present the data to the executive team or your manager? I think that's something like obviously AI won't help, but I think AI would be super helpful on the sort of technical aspect of your role. And I think that's why I said is the barrier to entry in this profession has greatly diminished, because if you have the soft skills, like you don't need to worry about the technical skills, because AI would sort of help you sort of patch that technical skills until you gain enough experience to do that task without AI.
Yeah.
Can I add something here, Ryanji?
Sure. Yeah. I think you're on mute.
Am I on mute?
All right.
Sure, I have this phone, so.
Yeah, I was just saying that I agree with Kisorji as well, because Suraj, you are coming from a highly technical background, like you are a chemical engineer. Your level of intelligence must be much higher, right? So that's why it's so easy for you. You make it sound so easy. But if someone coming from like arts or business background, they may not have such a sound problem-solving skills, and they may not be such a fast learner. So I think it is challenging job. Otherwise, why would they pay you like $140,000 a year? Even for a starting role, right? So it's easy, but not so easy, I would say, right?
Yeah, and that's and then I think the only reason is I encourage everyone to, even if like you don't want to specialize on this field, I think it's like learning the skill sets. I mean, it's the more you try, the more luckier you get, sort of concept. And I think I agree that coming from an engineering background, I think this transition was much easier for me. But I think even if I didn't have that, it might have taken longer. But I'm pretty confident, like it might have taken 2 years instead of I jumped straight in with but then it might have made the time longer. But I think end of the day, I think I could have got to this career without even that background to a large degree.
Yeah, sure. I think Rosie, you wanted to say something.
You're mute.
Yeah.
It's unmuted. I had to switch to the phone and then suddenly.
Okay, Rosie, you can please go ahead.
Can you? I'm audible now.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
We
So
are
I
hearing
had
you.
yeah. So it's really interesting presentation, Surajji, and then I think one thing is really very interesting to me is the problem solving and how you present the data analysis, because most of the things like these days, the naive people who want to do the data analysis, they think like, oh, I need to know the programming and everything, because those new people who wants to enter in the field. And then problem solving skill that you mentioned, that is one of the top priority. And then you said statistics is one of the core skill you need to have. And that is true also in the biology field. In the biology also, there is a new field called bioinformatics that is analogous to the what data analyst people and programming people will do. And most of the time, like all these AI thing and then all these programming thing, people can easily do the coding and then come out with a very great solution with the pictures, beautiful pictures, and write the paper. But the reality, some of the time, they can't define the problem itself in the first place. In the biology, like this is the treatment. I'm feeding this medicine to the patient. Let's see how it impact. What is the efficiency of medicine? And then that problem has not been designed properly. The experiment hasn't designed properly, and then all these AI tools and techniques they use and beautiful pictures and networking analysis, correlation, and then that doesn't make any sense. So I think like I'll reinforce that again. Having that problem solving skills is important, and then all these tools are the particular. Myself, I'm very good R users, and then I'm very good in the Python, but my training was in the biology, and then I had to switch to the programming tools just to add some of the questions. But that is not my core skills. I still need to know how to solve the problem and how to define the problem, the valid. So I really like your presentation, how you present it that way. So it's really helpful. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So I think it was more like an statement. Do you want to say something, Surajit?
Yeah.
No, I think I agree. I think the second thing is I think what Roshanji, what he effectively does data analytics without his title might be different, and then he does data analytics, and my title might be data analytics, but then I do policy analysis, which is nothing to do with data and analytics. So I think I'm actually quite I think I'm a bit I think the more I have gone in this career, the more I feel that a specialized role of data and analytics, it's sometimes it can come across quite I think everyone should be a data analyst, because everyone, to make a decision, you need data, and then data will help you identify how to reach your goal in the most efficient way. And so you need to analyze data. So I think and I think we all are data analysts in one way or the other. It so happens that there are jobs with a specialized role where you need to learn specialist sort of data analyzing skills in a bit more technical details. But I think end of the day is everyone is a data analyst one way or the other, and we all need to solve problems. So, that's why it's data analytics such a great field, because it enables you to pivot to different areas. So I started as a chemical engineer, pivoted to data analytics. Now, because I know data and analytics, now I'm pivoting towards. I pivoted to a Commonwealth agency job, which is by and large has very less to do with data and analytics in a traditional sense, and more to do with sort of policy type. So it's but then the difference between me and other professionals is that I know how to manipulate data when I see it, and this gives me that competitive edge. And that's why I encourage everyone to learn sort of how to use data for problem solving.
Okay. Now let's move on to.
Question is like, I have one question, Ryanji, if you don't mind.
Yes,
that is more like a statement. So how it is to transit from like a data analyst to programmer and vice versa? So how the day-to-day work looks like for the programmer or data analyst?
So you mean programmer as in?
programmer, just like coding, and then like just sitting in the chair and coding like whole day, and then what is the day-to-day life?
I think the day-to-day, I would say 50% of the time is engaging with stakeholders and identifying what the problem is. And before I had it the other way around, spend 10% knowing what the problem is, 80% coding, and 10% presentation. And I've learned the hard way that's a wrong way to split your time. So as of right now, I think having the experience, and as a disclaimer, this is how I do, so it doesn't mean it's the ideal way, is I spend 50% of the time just talking with someone. They say, oh, Suraj, can you analyze all the areas in Australia where there could be a drought and where the demand for drought loan could come from? It's like, and then the old me would have jumped straight into the data, downloaded all the Department of Ag data, the climate data, and try to build something complex. But now I actually spend 50% of my time engaging. Okay, why do you need this information? Like, what's your plan? So I spend sort of 50% of the time on identifying the problem, and sort of maybe 20% of the time actually doing the analysis. I think it comes from experience as well. Like I think I've gained enough experience that I don't need to spend a lot of time on the technical aspects. So and to be honest, like 80% of the work I do, it's not even technical to begin with. It's understanding what the problem is, joining data from Australian Bureau of Statistics, Department of Agriculture, like various credit providers, and it's sort of joining the data to find a story, and which is not a technical task necessarily. Anyone could do that on Excel. And then I spend a lot of time, okay, how do I present the data so it's useful to them? How do I design a slide, where the data is conveyed precisely, there's no confusion. So I think, so that's how I spend my time. It's 50% just talking, 30% coding. And by coding, I say within that, half is actually on Excel, no coding. It's Excel, tab 1, Department of Statistics data, tab 2, I join the data, and then I draw graphs. So half the time it's in Excel, no coding. And the third is actually then we're making PowerPoint slides for presentation.
Yeah, I've got this quick question, about the AI again. Sorry for that. The question is, like the chat GPT, there could be, AI focused, data model focused AIs, right? So the key skill should be actually prompt engineering, right? If you're smart in prompt engineering, right, then you can just ask good questions to the model. I mean, not ChatGPT necessarily, but there could be others as well, other models, right? Data models. So
yes,
what do you think?
I think I might be a bit biased in yes. I think I might be a bit biased because I think I'm coming from more of a data analytics, which is a bit different from data science. Large companies, they have stream of people working in a data science field, which is we've identified a problem. Now the solution needs to be found through technical means. So I think in tech company, I think so I think if your focus is a bit more technical data science side, I think AI, as I said before, it is a game changer. Things you could do in 20 days, now you can do it in 3 days. But I think it's really hard to tell AI because within a space of 2 years, I've seen AI go from like arbitrary metric 2 to 2000. So, and I don't know, is it going to stabilize at this level or it's going to go from, like the next level? So it's really hard to answer. I think a lot of the AI thing is hype. I think it's still a bit overhyped. I think AI is good at giving you a framework of like what, from a coding perspective, technical perspective, it does give you a good framework on how you should design your models, but half the time it says wrong things. And then I've realized a lot of the time, if you do it yourself without ChatGPT, it might take you 3 days. With ChatGPT, you get the code in 5 minutes, but then you spend the next 3 days identifying all the things they did wrong and trying to fix that. So it's sort of like that, but maybe in 2 years' time, the AI gets so good that the code you get, it's pretty much a finished product, and I think that'd be a game changer. But I'm not sure how that's going to evolve. So I think on that topic, I'll wait and watch. I think I would love to see it so good that you could just prompt your problem and then it gives solution for technical type problems. And just to give you an example, one of the task I had was identifying instances where spike for energy goes up suddenly, because when that happens, it damages all the equipment. So what I had to do was I had to write a model that that looked at the electricity consumption data every 2 seconds and predict at least predict ahead of time when that spike happens. And then when you can predict when that spike happens, then you can actually draw that tree diagram again to say what did the state look like just before that spike happened to cause that spike. So in that context, I actually had to use an anomaly identification algorithm. So at that time, it took me almost 2 weeks to create that model. But if you right now in ChatGPT, if you type in create an anomaly detection model for a time series data with 2 seconds resolution, it will give you a full code. And you could literally copy and paste that, point it to your data, and it will actually give you an accurate, like the model, it would be 90% correct. So, so in this context, it is 90% correct, then you might spend next 2 weeks trying to identify like small things that are wrong that AI gave you. But that aside, like it's 90% good. So I believe you being able to prompt your problem correctly and get the data, I think it's going to be a good skill. But I think right now it's still a bit early. But then in next month, OpenAI could drop a new model, and suddenly it's so good that it gives you it's a game changer, and then I'll be stumped and probably worried for my job as well.
Prompt engineering is emerging as a different field,
yeah,
and so on. So
yeah,
you
but
don't believe you can add that skill to your skill set for
yes,
data analysis.
yes, and I think I'll be a bit careful in that, because if the more better the AI gets, you don't need to write a good prompt. So I think right now you need to write a good prompt, because AI isn't good enough to understand what you need. But I think in 2 years' time, the AI could be so powerful that you could just write in a, like you're talking with a friend, and then, you're talking with a mentor, and it could actually give you the correct outcome. So I think in this field, it's so evolving that I'm almost afraid to make a judgment call on what could happen.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
You're on mute, Ryan G.
Yes, we have quite a few questions coming. I think there'll be more coming as well. So let's answer them quickly. So we have a question from Iswar. Iswar, sorry.
Hi, yes. Can I put my question now?
Yes, please, Iswar. Please go ahead.
So, with someone with experience from Nepal working around data analytics and business analytics and project management field, and a computer science degree from Nepal, do you have any tips and tricks for me in landing a similar job here in Australia?
Yes, Surajit.
So I think the fact that you already have that technical skills required, I think it's a really good start. And I think so. What I've noticed from someone, what I've noticed is that one of the things that really stopping technically proficient professionals from getting a job is how the CV and how the cover letter, how they're written. I think it's quite so. I think technical skills doesn't matter. You studied in Nepal, Australia. It's the same, right? We all use
Yeah.
exactly the same code, exactly. So I think we can probably disregard the technical requirement aspect. I think that's out of question, because you might be in Nepal, a call center. You might be a call center in Australia. If you do data analytics, both are going to do exactly the same thing. So I think the focus should be more on like how you're presenting yourself, and the only way you're presenting to a potential employee is through your cover letter and CV as a starting point. So I think, and I think, as I said before, any job you apply, 3 to 4 hours should be spent on making sure that your cover letter and CV, they are in roughly in how things are in Australia. Like I think in Nepal and in Australia, I feel there's a bit of a difference in how CV and cover letters are written. So I think number one would be to sort of upgrade that. But besides that, you apply for jobs. In my opinion, if you have the technical skills and you communicate well in your interview, I don't think anyone really cares where you studied or was the job experience in Nepal or Australia for this technical role. I think for non-technical roles, obviously, I think experience for Nepal, I think it's probably disregarded more. But in technical space, in my experience, and doesn't mean I'm right, I think in technical roles, it doesn't really matter what your experience is, as long as you present your best self in the interviews.
So I also had my CV and cover letters reviewed by some of the data science professionals who are working here in Australia as well. And I also have been applying in the roles as well by tailoring my CV and CV and cover letter, sorry. But I haven't had any interviews, physical interviews so far. I have had some phone interviews, but most of the times my visa comes as a bottleneck. So yeah, do you have any way how I can overcome that?
And apologies, I think I don't have the
expert in that
necessary.
area.
I've never had that issue personally,
But
so I have zero idea how that works. But maybe Ryan G is a better one to answer that.
Sure. Sure. Actually, one of the reasons why you're getting job is because of the gap in your resume. You don't have any local experience, right? And one of the ways to get over it is either do an internship, or you can identify similar companies in Australia, like in the same industry, and don't just apply for jobs which are on the job portal. Approach those companies directly by yourself, which you can do through LinkedIn. Find out who's the HR manager or who's the director or the decision maker in that company, and write them a personalized email saying that, I'm an experienced data analyst from Nepal. I have these technical skills and I have these problem solving skills, and I work for a company very similar to yours in the same industry. I can add value to your business straight away. Would you be kind enough to give me an interview? And most of them, if they really see that you can add value straight away, you can hit the ground running, they will invite you for interview. Because a lot of the cases where you don't get job interview is because in Australia, most of the jobs are handled by recruiters, and recruiters are paid by employers handsomely, so they don't. So their job is to meet the employer's brief, right? And one of the requirements in the brief is must have 2 years local experience. So if you don't have that experience, the recruiters don't send you they don't forward your resume to that employer, and that's why you lose the chance. So one of the ways to get over it is contact the companies directly, or you can do an internship. So in the internship, you get a chance to prove your worth and then secure a job offer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your valuable answers. Yeah, I hope it will surely help me.
And you're welcome to so send me. I'll write my email in this chat group, and you're welcome to sort of connect with me, and then I'm happy to. I'll be happy to sort of give you some tips that I might have, or maybe do a mock interview, or maybe I'll share some of the work I've done before in my previous companies, and it could help you when you're doing, and it could help you understand, sort of give you some examples of of how I have done my work, and maybe it'll assist you in your interview. So I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much. I just sent you a request on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you have a few time, could you please review my LinkedIn profile as well?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Probably, sir. You can also contact me for any job advice if you want. Okay.
Thank you.
Saugad says, great presentation, Suraj. Thank you. Hoping to learn more. And then we have Susan Sharma. Susan, are you there? Probably Susan has left already. Susan was asking start salary and maximum salary Australia. Do you have examples of use of data in digital media marketing?
So it's starting salary and max salary. I think it just depends on what company. There's things such as bonus, and so I think I'm not sure about the max, but I think starting, I think for if you have a good experience, I think 80, 100K. I think it generally could I think an example of starting salary on this sort of career. And to have example of use of data in, I think digital media marketing, it's one of the, I think, example I give about starting in a analytical career. I think marketing is one of the the good ways to enter into this field, because marketing analytical roles, they tend to be less technical heavy, because Google, Facebook, they actually give you really good high quality data. So the technical skills then required to analyze that is really, from a technical standpoint, is the barrier to entry is quite low. And just to give an example, I actually worked for a startup, and I did look at the marketing sort of area. So I think one of the analytics I did was, so we had customers coming to our startup. They were coming from Facebook, they were coming from Google, they were coming from organic, they were coming from blogs. That the ask was, how should we allocate our budget, marketing spend? And then that's 99% of the time, that's a puzzle that no one has solved, but everyone wants to solve, and there's a lot of work in trying to solve that, or pretending to try to solve, or at least make a small impact in one way or the other. Because if anyone who solves that riddle, I think will be an instant billionaire. But I think every company, there's always room to optimize. As an example, the startup I used to work for, where our key demographics was younger people, and younger women as an example. And then demographically, younger women tend to be found on Instagram, but because but we didn't know that the most loyal and high value clients are young women. So wrongly, we're investing a lot of money on Facebook, and that's where some of your older demographics tend to be. So we're spending a lot of money on Facebook, attracting someone who doesn't really consume your product or isn't interested, and then you're not maximizing your ad money on Instagram, as an example. In this example, so what I did was I looked at the most valuable customers by LTV. So I looked at top 10% of customers who have the highest lifetime value. Then we actually didn't record their gender and age. So what I did was I deduced the gender from their names, and then you can find external agencies who you can sort of share your data in a legal framework, and they can give you estimates of how old these customers might be. So using that analytics, we identified that our core demographics is younger women, and then we should spend more money on Instagram. So what we did was we revamped our way we collect data. We started collecting data on gender and age indirectly, so it isn't too intrusive. We collected that, and then we put money on Instagram, and the company margin improved over time. And that's a sort of a stock example of how sort of data analytics is sort of used on sort of digital marketing arena.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Rasanji. So now we have another question from Kiran Pandey. Kiranji, are you there? Kiran. No, I think he might have left as well. Okay, he's asking, problem solving is important, but isn't how you present the data visually is equally important for informed decision making? So how important is it for a data analyst to know what tools and technical to use for data presentation?
Yeah, I think Kiran has extremely good question. Yes, thing is, in the example before, like you've identified that the problem in the case study we did before, the problem was that the customer query was taking too much time. Now, I mean, I think that's a simple example, easy to communicate, but in context where it's hard to communicate with your senior stakeholders who have very limited time. And that's where I believe the presentation, like that data visualization skills, like how do you present data comes in. So that's one side, communicating with sort of senior, sort of executive level stakeholders. But then the second role of data analyst is to democrat is that everyone in the company has access to all the key KPIs and all the key data, and this is done through tools such as Tableau and Power BI, and that we briefly discussed before. So once you identify the problem, you have a KPI, then the KPI, and then you have to visualize it so that everyone in the company can see it. And to that, Tableau and Power BI are one of the two most in demand sort of tools used. So yeah, I think it's so there's two aspects. I think I might be a bit biased because I think I mainly deal with senior stakeholders, so I tend to focus more on presentation. It's how do you convince them that this is the solution. But I think from an entry level perspective, I think then the people you would be dealing with is the wider company, everyone in the company. So in that context, you need to have you need to visualize the data using tools such as Power BI, Tableau, and I think that's very important, because the more data there is, the more sunshine flows through the data and less of a blind spot.
Yeah, I think data is boring. Visualization makes it sexy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the other question we have is from Prakash. Prakashji. Yeah, I think he says he's at a public place. So I'll type my question. I'm a senior full stack developer, always thinking about my career growth. Can I switch to data analytics without prior experience, relying on my strong SQL skills? Also, what perks come with senior data analyst roles?
Thank you for your question, Prakash ji. I think, as I said, if you have the technical sort of fundamental statistics knowledge, you know how to use SQL, and you can visualize the data in one way or the other, then that's a minimum requirement to get into this field. So I think if you're willing to maybe go start off on a junior career, just to get the foot in the door, and then you progress pretty rapidly, with the experience you have. So I think SQL skills is a must-have. As a data analyst, if you can't query data from the database, like you're like a runner without legs. So in that sense, I think SQL skills is the must. I think everything else you can fudge around, you can sort of you muck around, and you can compensate by you can use ChatGPT, so on and so forth, and make yourself look like as if you know what you're doing. But I think SQL skills, that's fundamental. I think that's where you simply need to have that skill. If you don't have that skill, then within a week everyone would know that you're full of talk and no action. So I think if anyone sort of learns basics of SQL and some level of proficiency, then I think you can enter into data analytics and progress quite quickly, because you can then transfer your domain knowledge from different area. And also, what are the perks comes with senior data analyst role? I think perk is maybe what's headache. I think it's the more responsibilities you get, I've realized more headaches comes more than perks. But I think the perk is you get to engage with senior stakeholders, and then it makes the more engagement you have with executive level stakeholders, the more you understand how they approach. You get to learn from how they think. And I think I've in my previous role, the reason I switched from a very comfortable corporate job to a startup was that I wanted to have this direct connection with the senior stakeholders, the owners of the company, so then I could understand how they think, how have they built this company, and what's their approach to problem solving in a generic sense. So I think exposure to senior stakeholders I would say that it's the biggest perk, because that's what you want to do, because you want to be like them and hopefully replace them and become them effectively. So I would say that's the perk, and everything else is a headache.
Right. I think well, sometimes you do a lot of work and you come up with recommendations and the senior management doesn't take it. Do you feel
Yeah.
frustrated?
Yes, I did before when I was yeah, because I think that has happened. That does happen a few times, purely because of different way of thinking. But now, I think as I've gotten more experience, that happens less and less often, because I think, as I said, time is a valuable resource, and if executives aren't going to like what I'm going to do, then I shouldn't be doing that, purely because my time is valuable and I want to spend my time maximizing things that helps me personally, and then helps the company. So in that sense, I've gotten more disciplined, and I take a lot of time before I do anything. I spend a lot of time understanding, is this exactly what the senior execs need? And if I feel like and then so I never, so so before if I do something, I make sure I fully understand what they want. And still, there's disagreements, there are disappointments, there are disagreements. But by and large, just through simply asking them questions until they get bored. And I keep on asking them, like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And then next day I'll get, what do you want? What do you want? And then if I see inconsistency, I'll be like, oh, you said you want that thing that before, now you've changed your mind. Why have you changed your mind? It's, you keep on hammering them.
Yeah.
And I think it might, and then I think they're actually quite open, like senior execs. They're not like, not anyone. When you keep on asking them, you finally know what they actually want. Because when you ask what do you want, you would get the wrong answer. You ask second time, you get the wrong answer. I think by the 9th or 10th time, you actually get what they want. So I think it's important not to, and then that's how I have sort of learned, so that's why I've sort of learned to avoid those sort of pitfalls. And then so I only do things that I know they need or want.
Right. Okay. Sure. So now we have comment from Rex. Well done, Suraj. He said he's a friend of yours. Rex, do you want to say something? Okay, maybe he's not there. So he's saying that I hope everyone takes a bit of inspiration from what Suraj has shared today. Yeah, certainly. I think, we benefit so much. Okay. And Susan,
Apologies, I'm here now. Sorry.
Sorry, Rex.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Just busy here in New Zealand.
Oh, you're in
Yeah.
New Zealand. Okay. Thanks for joining us
Yeah.
from New Zealand.
Yeah,
Do you want
cool.
to say something to Suraj and the audience overall?
Yeah, I've been very impressed by Suraj. Well done. And yeah, I just hope that everyone's sort of broken down the mystery or the barriers to what data analytics actually is, and that you could be a part of that industry. And what you can achieve is what Suraj has explained, all the different scenarios he's been in and what he's been able to achieve, and that could be some of our guests here today. So yeah, I'd just like to say, yeah, well done, Suraj. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool, guys.
Thank you, Rex. Okay.
Thank you.
Susan Sharma says, thanks for the presentation. I have to leave. Okay. I think we already responded to his question. Okay. Prakash says, thank you, Surajji, for the insightful responses, informative presentation. Okay, so that's all the questions I have in the chat box. Is there any other questions? Anybody would like to ask anything? Please feel free, go ahead. I think Anushka-ji joined us a bit late. Anushka-ji, do you want to say something? Okay. Yeah, if you want to ask any questions, you can also leave it in the chat box if you're not able to ask verbally. Okay. So Surajji, as you said, it seems like data analyst role is more popular with marketing decision making, right? Because And marketing is a very subjective area. Like it's very difficult to measure the response. So sometimes, you might give like a killer strategy to your boss, right? And then and they make the profit goes up, and then they pay you a bonus, right? So it's also it's like a sales role. It's like you're not just getting base salary; you're getting a lot of bonus as well.
Yeah, and and they said you're your own startup. Think yourself as a company within the company, and your goal is to essentially earn the maximum amount of base pay or bonus. And I think that's the attitude everyone should have. And I think with that approach, you take some risk. You pitch an idea that could backfire. But I think generally in business, I think it might be different. It depends if you're established corporate versus startup versus sort of mid-family type companies. So I can't speak for every scenario, but generally it's if you solve problems, if you make people, through it's if you make more money for the company, that's how you're measured effectively. Because if someone's paying you 100K a year, it's because they're expecting you to deliver 300K worth of return one way or the other. So I think if you want to have a fast career growth, like you effectively need to think, okay, I'm a startup, I'm my own one-man startup. I'm here to make X amount of money. It's like, how do I get there? And I think that if you go with that attitude, then it gives you that confidence to communicate with senior stakeholders, and then you might pitch your own idea. And I think it doesn't matter. I think you can be a starting level person and you pitch your idea to your boss. And I think that my boss might pitch the idea as if it's their idea. That aside, but he will appreciate that you did give him his idea. So end of the day, you benefit, and then you gold reach sort of go up the food chain.
Right.
If you like, that's good. Or else, it's then gain enough experience to start your own company or anything.
Yeah. And within the job itself, what's the career progression like? From data analyst, you become a senior data analyst, and then you become a business analyst.
Generally, so you'd start off with sort of junior data analyst. The one with like not a lot of experience. And then you sort of become a data analyst, and then sort of senior data analyst. And then I think after that, it's because this field is quite new. Like there could be because right now my title, I think it says data and analytics manager, but I think title in this field is bit here and there because it's a new field. So it's the hierarchies and how things work. Still, like some companies, you're like a director level, but then your title could be a senior, and then you could be entry level, but then someone would call you manager. But I think if we get that sort of titles aside, I think in terms of how you progress is you start off with people telling you what to do. As a junior data analyst, you gain more experience, then you independently communicate with your stakeholders. So you don't have to go through your manager. And I think that's then you become like a full data analyst. And as you become senior, then it could be that you report to a divisional head. So you're almost like a 1 or 2 person sort of a unit that provides intelligence to the whole company. So you directly deal with the senior stakeholders depending on the company. So it's pretty it's a career that still new, and that's why it has so much opportunities. And it could be vertical. You could work as a data. I've known a friend who worked as a data analyst, and then he really impressed some of his senior stakeholder. Then he totally switched career to become a policy analyst, as an example. It's so I think it does open. I think you can almost be anything because no one really owns this. It's not like a sales, sales department owns it because everyone needs data. So you deal with every layer of organization. So in that sense, like you could move vertically or you could move horizontally in different areas and gain experience. But I think it's very bonus driven as well to a smaller extent because you could analyze things all the year and not produce anything. Like you could put in 50 hours a week and still have no outcome because that could happen. But then if you're really switched on and you find the example I gave you about saving $1 million a year, like it was I think I worked there for Central Group for 3 years. So I think, and one of my best ideas came within a space of 2 months, and I
Right.
probably spent 10 hours on that topic. And but then the rest, I did something, it didn't fly through. So it can be sort of a interesting journey. You 6 months, you do a whole bunch of analytics, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Suddenly, something happens, you have an idea, and business wants to do something. Suddenly you're busy, and then it's ebb and flow.
Yeah. Is it sometimes challenging to get access to the information you want? Like some of the information might be quite sensitive and internal information.
I think generally getting information isn't a challenge because you'd have like sort of master access to all the database.
Okay.
But I think where the challenge lies is
like financial
let's say
information
I
that
think
could
generally that's
impact the share price,
yeah.
inside
Oh
the
yeah,
trading.
I think there are some established procedures sort of on that. But I think the challenge is that you're not a sales team, you're not a operational team, you're almost like sitting on your own, and so people can sometimes feel this tension. It's like, well, why are you analyzing my sales data? It's why are you approaching my turf? I think that sort of things does occur because you don't report to the sales, but then you're analyzing their performance. So there can be a bit of a friction that you'd have to tackle.
Yeah.
And I think that's that
So you need
that does
people skill
happen.
too. You need
Yeah,
people
exactly.
skill,
Yeah.
negotiation skills as well. So you need to
Yeah,
convince
yeah,
those
yeah.
people to give you that information.
Yes, correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then align them with what you want to do. If you could spend it's a lot of time is spent on actually aligning with them that this is our shared goal, let's do it together.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Takes months. I've spent months on project where the only thing I really did was have a meeting and then convince them that this is the right thing to do. And then modified my approach based on the feedback, but just aligning on a task, that does take up a lot of time.
Right. Okay. Sure. I think we have some question. Yeah. Okay. So Suzal is saying not a question, but can I add some comments from my side on the topics discussed before? Okay. Yeah. Suzalji, where are you? Okay.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah. Yes.
Can
Yes, Suzal, please go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to add few things, like some comments from my side I wanted to add. So yeah, I'm a data analyst as well. I've been working in this field for a few years.
Yep.
So yeah, one thing I wanted to add on people coming from different field into data analytics is that what I've found so far in my workplace and like what I have seen in the field as well is that when people do come from different field, it brings that diversity and it is really important in the team as well. So for example, we are doing those retail analysis and someone with a retail experience comes as analyst, then they definitely would have more business context. And like you said, like analytics is not just about data, it's about all the business context and all those things. So they will be really good at that. I have seen that. And other things is kind of like maintenance planning and things like that. Yeah, there is the analytics part to that. But when someone with a mechanical engineering degree comes as an analyst, that takes it up a notch. So those kind of things are really good. And companies really value that as well. So when you are like purely technical data analyst, yeah, you have your own value, but in specific niches where you are like, okay, we are a banking or investment company, we need an analyst. So someone comes with a finance degree and an analyst skills, obviously they will lean towards that candidate. So having that diversity, and you can always use your extra experience other than data analyst is your advantage in getting into this field. So I think that's really good, and that probably you should encourage everyone who are in different field now and thinking of coming to data career. Absolutely try to make use of your past experience, no matter what it could be, and take advantage of that in switching your career. So that's one thing I wanted to add. And then the other one was about, yeah, we talked a lot about AI and how it will probably like help in analytics job and things like that. So, and again, I think it has been covered, like almost all the topics has been covered. But what I wanted to say is that AI usually don't work when you don't have quality data because it relies on quality data. So if you don't have quality data, it doesn't work. And because I am a data engineer now, so my whole focus is on curating that data set, making sure that it is to like the highest quality possible. So yeah, AI will be able to help us, but not when we don't have the quality of data to feed it. So in order to find those issues in the data, in order to fix those issues in the data, that's when we need all of those data analysts and all those people with business knowledge to in order to fix those issues in there. And obviously the problem solving part is always there. So solving the problem, that's not where AI would help. Once you have identified the problem, broken it down into maybe like small chunks, maybe then you will feed those things to AI, and that will produce you some codes or whatever it might be to solve those problems. But in the higher level, when you have to identify business level problems, that will never get replaced. And that's where the skills and experience comes in, like you had mentioned. So that was on this one. That was on the AI part I wanted to add. And the last one was the problem solving. And I think you have talked about it so many times. Problem solving is the key skill that anyone needs to learn in order to get to data analytics. But again, it's kind of like this chicken and egg problem. How do you learn problem solving without actually getting into the workforce or actually seeing the real world problem? So I have a few tips on that. And some of that was about, we need to first identify who are like really good problem solver in the entire business space. And that's where those consultants and consulting firms come in, because their whole business is about solving some other businesses' problem. So if we try to follow them, if we try to follow what sort of approaches they use, they tend to publish a lot of reports, they tend to produce a lot of resources on how they analyze this problem or what was their methodology and all those that. So if we study those, then we kind of get that really good structure, and we also kind of are exposed to a lot of like different problem solving methodologies. So I think that's a really good learning resources in terms of developing your problem solving skill. And there are a lot of frameworks that they will use. And once you start starting through those kind of like what the consultants are doing or the consulting firms are doing, you will come across like some of the frameworks. And it's not like those frameworks are always applicable to all the problems. But once you are familiar with those kind of framework, then yeah, your mind will start to kick in and start to think about those things differently. So some of the frameworks are like 5 whys, like asking 5 questions, why this happened, and then finding a solution again, and why this happened. That helps you break down those root cause analysis issues. So that could be one of the framework that you might be naturally inclined to. But there are a lot of other kind of methods that you mentioned during the session as well, like mind maps or tree views or doing some SWOT analysis. So those kind of like actual frameworks that are there to better facilitate the problem solving things. And if we do familiarize them ourselves with them, then probably that would help in our like learning how we can build our problem solving skills. So those are some comments I wanted to add.
Thank you so much. I think those comments were bang on, and I fully aligned with those. And I think the point you raised about looking at the reports that consulting firms publish, even some government departments they publish. I think reading through those on how they approached how they approached on finding a problem, solving that. I think it's a really good real life reference point for someone who doesn't have that practical experience themselves, and I think it's really good.
Yeah, that was very good summary by Susan here. I really like it as well. I think one of the rules of data analysis is garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So data integrity is so important. You gotta use the right data, right? Again, for that,
Exactly.
you have to ask so many questions. Okay. Yeah, so I think probably it's 11 o'clock already here. So we just gone over 2 hours. Probably we'll end the presentation, I guess, if there's no more questions. Maybe there was just one last question to Suraj, is that if there's one piece of advice you could give to someone who's starting a career in data analysis, what would that be?
Think before you act. That's it. I think it's if you just think for even a minute before you're acting on something, I think that goes a long way, because I've wasted so much time jumping immediately into action mode, then identifying what's the problem mode. And I think I've learned a hard way that, if someone tells you something, let's go to a quiet room and just think for 15 minutes. And it's easier said than done. I still struggle to do it. And someone says something, I immediately sort of jump into action mode, and I start doing it before thinking, okay, yeah, what's the why? Why am I doing it? Why did this issue come in the first place? So I think it's it's just thinking before you act. And second thing is read, read, go LinkedIn and follow 5 or 6 sort of, because I am in this field, I follow data science blogs. Just follow the blogs. Yeah, it's 5 or 6, and make a habit of at least reading, like spending maybe 3 to 4 hours, 2-3 hours a week, exclusively for reading what other people are saying in this field, the articles they've written. Uh, I have learned more. Like, I've learned so much. So it's being disciplined enough to sort of every week, maybe at least 5 or 6 articles. There's so many articles published, and some of them are good, some are bad. But just having a habit of reading articles, it introduces new concepts, and it forces you to think in a different way, because they say something that sort of you haven't really thought about that before. And I've learned so much from following. For example, there's one sort of data analyst. Like, I really love his blog post. I every time he has something new, I just read it, because I find that so informative. So like, follow like five or six people that you really think are sort of subject matter expert in this field, and just maybe once a month or once a week, just follow what they have done, like anything they've written. I think these 2 things, I think I would say, sort of as my last sort of advice to anyone. And I actually, this advice for myself as well. I say this, but I sort of at times I don't do that myself. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, great advice, Suraj. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to request Kishorji to conclude the program today. Kishorji, would like to say something?
Yes, thank you, Ryanji. So you did a very good job, Surajji. So well done. Thank you so much. And I believe our audience is, also learned so many things today. And then the important thing is, you simplified, if you told in a very simple way, that was very easy to understand for everybody. I believe you talked about how to think tactically, tactical thinking. That was very important. We all enjoyed. And typical day as a data analyst. So that was very insightful. So we learned, people knew what to expect as a data analyst and how to solve a business problem. I like that. I like your insights and answers. So your way of thinking, from messy thinking to messy thinking, that was very interesting thing. And most importantly, strategic problem solving skills. So how to develop those skills, you talked about that, and we found them very insightful. And how to get into data analytics, that was the key question actually of today's presentation, and you answered the questions very well. You explained the things very well, and the key skills, for example, included SQL, statistics, and the most important key skill we learned, from you, we explained very nicely that the ability to solve the problems and identify the opportunities, of course. So that is the very key skill. And also our guest, audience, Sujal Dhungana also explained that. He also provided his input very well. Thank you, Sujalji. And yes, AI is a game changer, right? We all learned that. And now, I've got nothing much to say because we discussed so many things, we explained so many things. Well, right? So I don't want to take your time. All I want to say is embrace the power of continuous learning. As with any field, in the field of data analytics, so we need to embrace the power of continuous learning. That is very, very important because technology changes, all the time, especially AI, data analytics things, models. So that is very, very important. So thank you again, Surajji, and
Thank you
thank you,
so
Angie,
much.
for facilitating this, and all the audiences who put their questions for your discussions, inputs. Thank you. And our next session might be, I'm saying might be, using humor in the workplace, in your workplace. So wherever you work, humor is very important. And we'll also do some laughter yoga exercises as part of the session. So we'll have fun, definitely fun. But it's not confirmed as yet. Ranji and I will be in discussion, right? So I highly encourage you to attend that session, the next session, whenever that happens. And also ask your friends, families. Yes, bring along, no problem. Because this is very useful. And I look forward to seeing you in the next session and other next sessions as well, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kisharji. That was a very good conclusion. Yeah, I think we had a great time today. Very, very insightful presentation by Surajji, right? He said so many things that you can't learn from a classroom. Okay? It's like, I think the lesson I got today was that data analytics is a great career to have, and it's not that challenging to get into. It's not as difficult as it sounds, because most universities, they make it sound so difficult.
Yeah.
It's like you have to invest $100,000, get a master's degree, spend 2 to 3 years. It's not like that. It's a skill that you can acquire by doing some lessons, free lessons. Yes, you can go to university, get a degree as well. That will definitely help. But some of the things that we learned today was so, so valuable. Even I learned so much. I'm sure all of you learned a lot as well. That will save you a lot of time, effort, money. Hopefully one day you become data analyst and you'll think of Surajji and basically thank him for all the information he shared today. Right? Okay. So thank you very much,
Thank you so much.
everyone.
Thank you so much for the platform. Really, I'm really grateful, and thank you so much. And I think I'm free. I'm available for anyone to get in touch with me through LinkedIn or Facebook or any channel, and I'll try to do my best to assist you with any queries you might have. And thank you so much, Ryan Dai, for giving me the platform. I'm and the broader team. And thank you so much. I'm really grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I
Thank
think
you.
that's the end of the presentation
Bye.
today. See you again soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.